Hi, Janeites. Welcome to episode 24 of the What the Austen podcast. This is actually the final installment of the Disney Villain times Austen villain journey. It's been a wild ride, guys, and I've loved every minute of it. Anne is back, obviously. And in this episode, we are going to be covering Northanger Abbey. So the last novel on our list. And the first villain I have on the list is General Tilney. I probably should say a little bit about him because I know Northanger Abbey isn't the most read of the novels. So General Tilney is Henry's father, also Eleanor and Frederick's father. He's pretty wealthy. He's like ex-military, is a pretty like dark, like brooding kind of guy. He's said to be like always looking at the floor, just walking around and pacing and thinking to himself. It's common knowledge that he didn't have a very happy marriage to Henry's mother. And Catherine kind of takes that thing a little bit too far, and she kind of thinks he's a real serious villain. But I think it's just to the extent that he's just not really a very nice guy, and he just wants to be alone and do his own thing. And he's very concerned with status. If he hears that any of his children are looking to marry someone, he literally shows up. That's actually one of the reasons he shows up in London in the first place, is he hears that Henry's interested in Catherine, and so he shows up to be like, who's this Catherine girl? What's going on here? So yeah, that's just a little bit about him in case you've forgotten who he is. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first for this one?
Yeah, go ahead. Go first.
Okay, no worries. I have 3 on my list for General Tilney. And the first one that I had was the Queen of Hearts. Mm-hmm. So I put the Queen of Hearts on because she's very ruthless, hot-headed, just wants to execute people for the small things, is unpredictable. And I think, considering in our Disney Princess episode, we matched Catherine and Alice for a lot of the reasons, I think that General Tilney really fits into the same kind of villain against the heroine kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
Basically, General Tilney is the reason that Catherine's kind of thrown out in the middle of the night, because he finds out that she isn't wealthy after he was told that she was. And I feel like that's so similar to the Queen just suddenly being like off with her head and just flipping out about the fact that Alice wins when they're playing croquet. Yeah, I thought they were quite similar with that, like that craziness.
Yeah, no, I could see that for sure. I like that, especially with the fact that I do see so much of Catherine and Alice so curious and everything. That's kind of perfect. It's like she kind of stumbles into this trap without even realizing it.
Yes, and that's so similar to Alice. Alice has no idea. Well, she has no idea what's going on in Wonderland, full stop. And I feel like that's so similar to Catherine. She's totally out of her element at Northanger Abbey. Catherine never set out to deceive anybody. It's all to do with the thoughts, the reason that they have these perceptions about Catherine being wealthy.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's so just like, what's going on here? Like, and he just, yeah, he's just like a bit ruthless and a bit hot-headed and just basically jumps to conclusions and blames Catherine for everything. It's very similar to what the Queen does, I think.
Oh, I like that. Very good.
And then the next one on the list that I have is Professor Rattigan from Great Mouse Detective. Is that what it's called, the film?
Oh, yeah. I haven't watched that in forever.
So neither did I, but I did actually watch it recently. So this is a little bit of a stretch. Okay, hang with me for this one. So the reason that I matched these two is Northanger Abbey obviously has all of these Gothic tropes, obviously a Gothic novel. Mm-hmm. And Professor Rattigan is actually voiced by Vincent Price. And if you don't know who Vincent Price is, he's actually like basically like the godfather of like Gothic film.
Yeah.
He was in like loads of classics. And if you've not watched like classic horrors, I haven't watched much of that myself, but you may have seen him in Edward Scissorhands. He's basically like a cameo of himself. He plays Edward's the inventor, so Edward's dad, who like creates him in the first place. And yeah, he's basically like super well known for being in Gothic film. And so I thought, in a similar way that Northanger Abbey really represents, you know, the Gothic genre, even if it's in more of a satirical sense, I thought that they both have this larger than life villain who really falls into the Gothic trope. And I think Professor Rattigan, having Vincent Price as the voiceover and how he's like in like a Dracula cape and all sorts. I think it's kind of that extreme, you know, Gothic elements and Gothic villain that Catherine imagines General Tilney to be. Yeah, they're just like quite similar in that sense.
I love that. I love that so much. And, you know, I didn't even know that Vincent Price was the voice of that character at all. But I love Vincent Price, and he actually inspired Tim Burton in a lot of his filmmaking. And so that just all that fits together so well. That's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know either. The actually only reason that I figured it out is I actually watched Edward Scissorhands, and 2 days later I watched The Great Mouse Detective. And because I heard their voice in Edward Scissorhands, I was like, oh my gosh, is that Vincent Price? Like, what?
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, and then I realized, and I was like, this is actually perfect for my Disney villain episode. I'm going to make a stretch of a connection here. Yeah, so and also the way that Professor Rattigan like reacts to things is really dramatic. He literally calls on a cat every time something goes wrong so that they can eat his, basically like the people that work for him. It's like the threat that's hanging over, and that's very similar to the threat that appears to hang over Catherine eventually, is that he's going to throw her out in the night and she's got to basically get what is at the time public transport home, which is quite dangerous in the middle of the night. So yeah, so I thought they were quite similar. I did have another link for Professor Rattigan as well, and that is Catherine's always searching for clues to try and prove that he's a villain, and that's really similar to Basil searching for clues, because obviously he's like a version of Sherlock Holmes. So I was like, that's really similar to that.
So good. That is like one of my favorite ones that you've done so far. I love the ones that at first it just doesn't seem like it's going to make sense, and then when you make all those connections, it's like your mind's blown, because it's like it makes so much sense. It's perfect. That one's a good one.
Yeah, so that was like my biggest one for him. I just have one more, and it's just like a quick comment, and that was Jafar. And that's literally just that kind of the scheme to marry somebody who's this younger woman who's wealthy and is gonna basically like, I don't know, give you more power or something, because General Tilney actually starts to be interested in Catherine himself when he believes that she's super wealthy. And that's like really creepy, and a bit like Jafar being really creepy with Jasmine.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, that was everybody on my list for General Tilney. So I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, well, I will actually start with Jafar because he's on my list also, so we can I can play off of what you said. Basically had a lot of the same reasons. Evil plot for money. Tries to get his son to seduce Catherine because he thinks that she's an heiress, which is similar to Jafar trying to manipulate the Sultan into letting him marry Jasmine. But I also was thinking about how Catherine is kind of a diamond in the rough in the same way that Aladdin is. Like, you know, I don't think that she really thinks that she needs to be a fancy lady or anything like that in the way that Aladdin feels like he needs to be a prince. But I still think that she is this like true diamond of a person that she's rough around the edges because of being naive and not really, having a lot of experiences in the world. And so I think that you could kind of equate that a little bit. And I think that Jafar tries to use Aladdin in a similar, well, not exactly a similar way, but in a way that General Tilney tries to use Catherine. They're completely different ways. I'm not making sense, but they're in completely different ways, but they're both trying to use somebody. They're diamond in the rough.
Yeah, it's like that power dynamic with like someone being able to manipulate somebody who's maybe on the poorer side, or is, like you said, like a diamond in the rough, somebody who at their core is a good person, but on the outside obviously is like a little bit rough around the edges, like you said. And I feel like there's like a part in like Northanger Abbey where General Tilney's like showing Catherine around, and she's like commenting like, oh, this is all like super fancy, but she has no, like, she can't really like understand exactly what she's looking at because she's not got the taste, or she's not seen enough of like really fancy stuff to actually realize what she's looking at. So like she's not got that sophisticated like palette for it at the moment. And General Tilney's like that, like, oh, it's strange, maybe she's just being polite and like complimenting things, like why has she never seen this before? And I feel like that's so similar to Jafar like watching Aladdin when he's trying to be the prince and being like, why would he not know this stuff, or why would he not, do you know what I mean? Like they have that same like looking at them like this has got to be like a ruse maybe.
I like it. I think that's a good one. I also had Frollo because I think that there's a little bit of a sinister gothic thing. Even though it's not really a gothic story, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I mean, Notre Dame Cathedral has that gothic vibe. It's kind of has that connection. And I think they're both kind of seriously a little scary. And I really think General Tilney is the most scary villain of like all of Austen's villains. And I think I just love the way Austen does this. I mean, she shows that a real person who hasn't murdered his wife in that gothic novel sort of way, but maybe slowly killed his wife through the stress that he put on her and the way that he treated her. I just think that she shows that, sometimes the people that we might know next door might be more scary than like a gothic villain character. And I think that's sort of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like maybe the local priest is actually the scarier person than the hunchback. So I think that those two go together. And then my last one is Clayton from Tarzan, because he's very charming and manipulative and comes across as very suave and chivalrous at first, but he's hiding his true nature. And he lies to the naive Tarzan, which is exactly what General Tilney does to the naive Catherine. And he lies to the naive Tarzan to get the gorillas, like Tilney lies to Catherine to get her money. Well, what he thinks is her money. So those are my 3 or 4.
I like
I don't know how many I had.
No, they're good. I like them. Yeah, absolutely. And also I love that we had like different ones. I feel that's really good. Apart from like Jafar, obviously we found the link there, but I feel like it's cool that we had like different ones for him, because I feel like because he's such like a classic villain in a sense, like he does fit into so many, so it's good to find the links with like multiple different characters, I think.
Yeah, your Great Mouse Detective one, that was awesome. I really want to rewatch that, especially like this fall. I'm gonna have to watch that leading up to Halloween. That sounds like the perfect Disney movie to rewatch for the first time since childhood. Honestly, I have not watched that since I was a kid.
That was literally the same as me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like such an underrated film. And then when I found out that like Vincent Price was a voiceover, I was like, how is this not like a massive Disney movie? Like,
I know.
do you know what I mean?
I know. It's just one you kind of forget about. I always forget about that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was only like through doing this that I actually went back and watched it. So guys, yeah, I'm putting it out there. Let's go watch it. Okay, great. So moving on the list, the next Austen villain that I have is John Thorpe. So I really hate this guy. He's like, so basically John Thorpe is he's the brother of Isabella, and he's just a slimy guy. I genuinely really do not like him, but he's also the person that causes the most problems. So he's basically like the town gossip in London, and he's the one that originally tells General Tilney that Catherine's wealthy when she's not, and then he's also the public person subsequently who goes back and says she's not wealthy, which then causes her to be kicked out of Northanger Abbey. So he causes a lot of problems. He also proposes to Catherine, or at least says that he's interested in enough to propose to her or something along these lines, and then tries to get his sister to convince Catherine to marry him. The Thorpes in general are just weird people, but John Thorpe creeps me out fully. Like, I genuinely can't stand it.
What I hate though about him is that he reminds me the most of, like, I feel like you could equate him to certain modern guys because of like his showing off his carriage. I think we might have mentioned this another time, but how that so equates to cars. And I just feel like the classic narcissistic, I'm so great guy. He's him to a T, and that guy hasn't changed for 200 years.
Right? Isn't it the people that you can actually like relate to, people you could meet in real life, that scare you the most? Because you're like, oh my gosh, there are John Thorpes out there and I'm scared of them.
I know.
Oh my gosh, so funny. Okay, I am going to let you go first for this one.
Okay, so I had a really hard time pinning him down besides going with Gaston, and I feel like I have picked Gaston a lot, and but I feel like it fits. I feel like it fits really well, and I feel like it's really obvious, the fact that he's narcissistic, the fact that he's trying to show off, the fact that he's trying to get her away from the person that she really likes or cares about, just like with Gaston and the Beast. But I had a kind of interesting one that he reminds me a little bit of Honest John and Gideon from Pinocchio, because they're the fox and, oh gosh, I can't, it's like a cat. I think it's like a fox and a cat, because
it's a cat.
Yeah, because Pinocchio's naive and they're like, come with me, this will be so much fun and everything will be great, and come to this carnival of life. And that's exactly how he is. He's like trying to get her into these chaotic situations, or kind of kidnap her under the guise of like, this will be so much fun, and it actually never turns out to be fun, and always turns out to go really poorly for Catherine. So I thought that was kind of a unique side of his personality, aside from just the stereotypical obnoxious narcissistic guy, because that is really how he does it in a very unique way, by always trying to lure her by, this will be fun, here's some candy. She doesn't fall for it after a while, which is what I love. But yeah, I could see that connection, like with them in Pinocchio.
Well, I'm about to tell you, I also had that same one.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Literally did. So I have like an added section underneath Isabella and John, which says them together.
Great.
And I thought Honest John and Gideon together is so like Isabella and John, because I think they say at one point, they're like, we're going to be playing our cards right. And it's so that they can make money. And obviously they keep like taking Pinocchio to all these different scenarios. I mean, oh my gosh, if you've not watched Pinocchio recently, it is disturbing. Like,
it is.
Like, I found it so disturbing when I was on the Pinocchio ride at Disneyland Paris, because I was like, this is such a dark, scary story. Like, oh, honestly, really creepy.
Is.
But yeah, they basically go and find the target, like you were saying, and then put so much energy into pursuing it because they know it's going to make them money. And yeah, I absolutely saw it. And the fact that they're both called John as well. Let's just put that out there.
I know. And honest John. Because he tries to pretend that he's so honest, but he's not.
I know. And I thought that the same way as well, that Jiminy's Cricket is very much like Henry, like that voice of reason, that conscience that's trying to say to Catherine, these aren't nice people. Just like Jiminy Cricket obviously follows Pinocchio around. He's like, these aren't nice people. You need to avoid them. So yeah, I love that link so much.
I didn't make that connection with Jiminy Cricket and Henry, but I love it. That's great.
Okay, I'll let you tell me. You do have another one, yeah?
No, I don't. So that's my main one for John Thorpe. Yeah.
I love that one. Honestly, I love it so much. Like, I'm so...
I love that we both came up with it.
I know.
Because it's really obscure too.
Literally, I was going to say, like, it's so rare that we match on the really rare ones that we pick. Like, we usually pick up like a couple of those ourselves, but it's so rare that we both find the same one. So I love that. That's so funny.
I love it.
So I think I have two for John Thorpe, and it's really funny actually that you went with Gaston, because I took a slightly different approach and I went with LeFou. Just because I think John Thorpe's a little bit more like bumbly and a bit daft and like unintelligent.
Yes.
And I think that Gaston again is like unintelligent, but I just think there's something like about LeFou that I feel like John Thorpe gives me more sidekick vibes for some reason.
Yes, he does.
I don't know why, even though he obviously thinks a lot about himself. But I also think LeFou also is a bit of a kiss bum.
Yes.
Like kiss bum. He's a bit of do you know what I mean? He like kisses up to people. Like LeFou kisses up to Gaston. I feel like John Thorpe goes around like kissing up to people all the time. Like when he meets General Tilney, or when he bumps into Henry, or originally when he meets Catherine, like it's genuinely super creepy, but he does that all of that time, and he's a bit slimy, a bit like LeFou. I mean, I actually love the new version of LeFou, like when he's in the like the person adaptation, but yeah, I just think there's elements of LeFou that really show in John Thorpe. I
like that so much better than Gaston, because I feel like Gaston is the easy one for a lot of these arrogant Jane Austen villains who are trying to get a girl. But I like that so much better, because he really didn't feel like, he does not have main villain vibes, if that's a thing, the main character vibes. He doesn't have main villain vibes. He has sidekick villain vibes.
Yeah, I feel like he's like a weird combination of like Gaston and LeFou. I mean, that sounds terrifying, but I feel like that is John Thorpe. That's why he's so weird. Like, he's so creepy and weird.
He's really socially awkward in that way too, that LeFou is. So I like it. It's great.
Yeah, literally. And then the next one that I had on here is a little bit more of an obscure one as well. So my next one is Sir Hiss. So Sir Hiss is in Robin Hood, and he's basically the sidekick of Prince John. So he's like this snake who helps Prince John like collect taxes from the poor. He's also money obsessed like Prince John is, but he's like the voice in his head. So what's really funny is throughout Robin Hood, he's always in Prince John's ear hissing, and Prince John's like, go away, stop hissing in my ear, Hiss, what are you doing? Like, you're genuinely driving me up the wall.
Yes.
And that's so similar to John Thorpe, because he's always whispering into people's ears and eavesdropping on people, and Hiss does that. He like puts his head in a balloon so that he can eavesdrop on some of the other characters, and that's like John Thorpe. He does that all the time, and not put his head in a balloon obviously, but he's like eavesdropping on people. And there's actually a scene that Hiss goes to Prince John and says, the stalks Robin Hood, because Robin Hood is like in a disguise, and Prince John already knows by this point, so he's just like, he's furious. He's like, I already know now. oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me this before? And I think that's so similar to when John Thorpe, I mean, I don't think we actually see this in the book, but when John Thorpe goes back to Captain Tilney and says, oh, what I told you before about Kathleen being really wealthy, actually, she's not wealthy at all. And that infuriates General Tilney. And I just think, yeah, he's like this voice in everybody's ear, just like hissing and getting on everyone's nerve and spreading lies.
I love that. I love the hissing in the ear. That is such a good one. I did not think of that one either.
Yeah, I thought that was like, I did again, like it was just because I was like looking through some of them, and he's one that I totally forgot about. But I was like, you know what? He kind of fits for John Thorpe. John Thorpe's such a hard one to match because I feel like there's no Disney character who's kind of going around like spreading lies and rumors. Like it's a very chick flicky, more modern kind of character, isn't it, in a sense?
Yeah, I feel like he is one of the most modern seeming characters in Austen. I don't know what it is, something about him just strikes me as so realistic, aside from, you know, just the main heroines and such. Just as far as the side character goes, I feel like he just feels the most modern to me. And he's very vivid and very memorable, and he just makes you so mad. He makes me so mad.
Literally, you're just like repulsed by him.
Yeah.
And it's what's so funny is he doesn't do anything quite as bad as some of the other villains, but he's still the most gross for some reason. I don't know.
Just so sneaky about it. It is so much like Honest John and Gideon. I just think that is the perfect one because he's so sneaky about like, this will be so much fun. This will be so great. And he just has a total disregard. Like he acts like he loves Catherine. I mean, I think he loves what he thinks her money is, but he acts like he really cares about Catherine. It's like he doesn't know her at all. Like it's like he doesn't even have a clue. He's so unbelievably clueless about what a girl like Catherine would be interested in talking about. And he just goes on about his Regency era equivalent of like a fancy sports car, and she's not interested at all.
Literally. Oh, so grim. Honestly, so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, that was everybody that I had for John Thorpe. So the next one on the list is his sister, Isabella Thorpe. Again, I really struggled with this. I got a lot for her. But I was like, again, she's such like a modern character, a more chick flicky as well, that it's quite hard to match her to someone in Disney.
I agree.
I'll let you go first though. You can let me know who you've got if you want, or do you want me to go first? I don't mind.
Oh no, that's fine. I had just a couple for her because I did have trouble matching her. I feel like this is just making me think we probably should have gone out to like some of the Disney Channel original movies. We'll have to do that another time with like characters of Disney Channel original movies. Because like when you said the chick flicky thing, that makes me think of some of the like fake best friend girls who end up being like, we know the whole time that they're fake, like in some of those Disney Channel type movies. But anyway, for the actual cartoons, I thought of Bellwether from Zootopia because she seems so sticky sweet and she's really the villain. And then Ursula, which is a little bit of a twist, but I feel like even though Ursula is more overtly a villain and evil, it is something that we kind of see that she has no desire to help Ariel, and Ariel's kind of dumb, where it's like she feels a little bit like weird about her, even though Catherine doesn't feel weird about Isabella Thorpe. I do feel as if there's a little bit of a similarity in that she's kind of pulled into thinking this person wants to help her when really she has her own ulterior motives. And then even though this is definitely a stretch, I feel like you could say that Isabella's interest in Catherine's brother, maybe a little bit like when Ursula turns into Vanessa, trying to play this person who's like the beautiful, nice, seductress type of person to get someone who normally wouldn't be interested if they knew what she really was. So I feel like that was a real stretch. So I'm interested to hear what you have, because I really struggle with that one.
Yeah, I feel like I was stretching a lot for Isabella as well. Not because she's not villainous, but because I just couldn't fit her to the same villain characteristics. So I agree. But I did have Ursula on my list as well. And that was just, I feel like she befriends the heroine only to stab her in the back in the future, and plays on the heroine's naivety, because like Ariel's quite naive when she goes to Ursula and she thinks she can trust her, and then it turns out she really can't. But I love what you said about when Ursula turns into like the seductress. That's really cool. I like that. That's really good, because that's very much what Isabella is all about. Is literally like she's on like a manhunt for a rich guy, and she she really doesn't care about anybody's feelings, but she is so sticky sweet as well. Like Bella, you're so right. Oh my gosh, both of those, they're both really good. One of the other ones that I had on my list was Mother Gothel. And that's just
that's
that,
good. Yeah.
you know, like the manipulative gaslighting. So she kind of falls under the radar of love. And like with Catherine, she's like, we're such good friends. Like, I'd never hurt you. We can do this together. And they're like really close. But at the end of the day, like she's actually not a nice person. And she's got this ulterior motive that the heroine knows nothing about.
Yeah.
And it comes out obviously later on, a bit like when Rapunzel figures out that her mother's not actually her mother and that she's trying to use her for a magic glowing hair. So I feel like that's so similar to like Catherine when she gets that letter from her brother saying like basically Isabella's been flirting with Frederick for weeks and our engagement's over, and then Isabella sends her the letter like, please help me get back with your brother because Frederick's gone now. And I'm just like, no.
That's so good. I think Mother Gothel, I didn't even think about that one, but I think that's my favorite one so far.
Literally. And then another one that I put on was Madame Medusa, which is actually a link I made with Lucy Steele in the last episode.
Oh yeah.
And I just think that Lucy Steele and Isabella have so many similarities that I just thought, you know, that greediness, and they'll go to great lengths under a full pretense, again under love, because Madame Medusa pretends that she loves, I can't remember what the little girl's name is, but she's like, oh come on, I'll take you home and you can have your teddy, but then she's also like super mean about it and you need to do this. So she has like that switch, that those different personalities that she puts on for different times. That's so similar to Isabella. She's just two-faced and it's gross. And then the last one I had on the list for her was Hans. And that is just like that manipulation again, tricking somebody. Obviously like James, Catherine's brother, isn't a significant character like Honor is. But I feel like it's kind of it's still that kind of drawing somebody in to get them to love you, only to then turn around and be like, actually, I don't want you anymore because I found somebody else, or I've got another motive, or money's over this way. And yeah, she's very much like that. And I feel like Anna's very similar to Catherine. I think we probably made that link in the Disney Princess one, that they're both quite naive. And it's just that person they're the person that you didn't think they were originally, because they put this like false pretense in. I feel like Isabella's very much that kind of character.
Yeah, she's definitely the frenemy, which is, I don't think I've seen this movie, but there is a Disney Channel original movie called Frenemies, which it just seems like that modern kind of like, I don't know, like that trope of the frenemy girl who's like, oh, I'm so nice, but actually we all know when we're watching it. I just don't think anybody buys that Isabella is like really a nice person after you hear a few things that she says.
I know. She really makes my skin crawl though. So I did have one more on the list, but that's actually a John Thorpe Isabella combination, a bit like the honest John Gideon one. And that was Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
That's
so
great.
that was because they're super mischievous. They're always trying to stop Alice from getting where she wants to go. So like following the White Rabbit. And this is very much the same as what Isabella and John do when Catherine wants to go and meet the Tilneys. They make up these lies and they draw Catherine in to take her off on this like carriage ride. We're going to take you on a totally different, a wild goose chase here, because we don't want you to go and do what what you're actually set to do today. So yeah, I just thought they were quite similar as well.
Yes, I really like that.
Actually, and like I said, I actually met Tweedledum and Tweedledee at the Disney park, which was fun.
That's
they were really fun to meet. They were like the best. I think they were our best ones to interact with. They were really fun.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
I wouldn't want to meet Isabella and John Thorpe in the Disney park. That would not be fun for me.
I would not either.
So funny. Okay. Do you have anything else that you want to add for Isabella and John?
No, I do not.
So we're on the last person then. The last one. This is it. I wish it was like a bigger character for the finale, but it's not. It is Captain Frederick Tilney. So this is Henry's brother, the person that Isabella starts flirting with and everything. He was really hard as well, I think, just because I don't really know him that well. He's basically just a flirt and a womanizer who just appears. He's just like a bit of a scoundrel, but like has no cards in the game.
I know.
As it's such, like, do you know? So he's a bit of a weird one, but he's definitely a villain though. So I've added him to the list. Do you want to go first with your picks?
I struggled with him, and so I'm just even trying to sit here and think if I can think of anything off the top of my head even more. But I feel like this is such a boring pick because I just thought of Hans and I thought of Gaston. I feel like that he kind of has a really good combination of both of their personalities, but I really really struggled with that one. And it is because I don't think we get to know that much about him. And I couldn't find a really good character that equates him. So I am going to pass it over to you because I would love to hear what you came up with because this one stumped me.
Yeah, agreed. It's super, super hard one. So I definitely put Gaston and Hans on there with that, like the fact they're flirtatious, trying to draw women in,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't really care if they hurt people's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did pick two others, and this is just because I feel like the way that Frederick is dark in the sense that he causes chaos for fun,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like is like a really weird thing that we don't see with a lot of Austen villains, that they're actually, like I said, they have no cards on the table. They're not even in the game, but they just want to mess with people. And that's very much like what Frederick does. So I picked the coachman from Pinocchio because of that, like no morals and no remorse. Just because he is terrifying. Like, I don't know if you guys have watched Pinocchio recently, but like I was saying before, it's absolutely terrifying. He's basically got like this like human trafficking thing with little boys where he turns them into donkeys, and he like draws all these little boys to, like, Pleasure Island. This might be a bit of a stretch, but I genuinely feel like Isabella thought she was going to Pleasure Island when she was with Frederick, and obviously that all backfired. So he didn't turn her into a donkey, but he definitely made her look like a donkey for sure. So
that is great. That is a really good one that I did not think of. I like this one. This is my favorite one so far.
So yeah, I put that one on the list for those reasons. And then I did also put on the Horned King from The Black Cauldron, which, if you've not watched that film, guys, that is such an underrated Disney film. I love it.
Me too.
It's really dark, but it's awesome, right?
Yes,
it's
a great
one. So yeah, I definitely recommend watching that. But basically the Horned King has a motive basically to like take over everything and like ruin everybody's life. But there's no like nothing behind it. It's not like anyone did him harm or anything. He's literally he's a bit like Frederick in the sense that he just turns up and he's like, he just wants to ruin everyone's life just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So I just thought he was a good one to throw in there because it's the villain who's the villain for he has no backstory. He's just the villain for being a villain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that was the hardest. He was the hardest one to equate to a character because of that, because he's just kind of like a non-Disney example is like you could equate him to something like the Joker in The Dark Knight or something like that. Heath Ledger's is just an agent of chaos. And I feel like Disney does a good job of giving their villains motivation for the most part, but he just doesn't. He's just a jerk. He's just a narcissist.
Literally, he's just like a bad guy who like rocks up. And I think, obviously, I suppose, again, he's like a catalyst so we can actually find out that Isabella is, in fact, not a very nice person. But yeah, they actually would have made a pretty good match. It's a shame that he didn't go for it because I feel like him and Isabella actually would have been they would have had a terrible marriage, but like personality wise, they would have been well matched.
They would have had a good time like swindling everybody.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, ruining everybody's lives together. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, so funny. Oh, that was everyone though. That was so much fun. I feel like yeah, we've gone through so many characters. Like when you think about it, so many.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot. It's amazing. I didn't realize how many villains there were until we started putting together our notes for this in Austen, because you just think of Austen as light, bright, and sparkling, and you think of Mr. Wickham immediately, or Willoughby, but there's a lot more villainous behavior going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think so as well. And I feel like there's kind of like those more detailed things that they do that you're like, actually, I can find matches with other villains who do that, and it just builds up that character, doesn't it? And I just think, yeah, it's not always the surface level stuff like, oh, he broke someone's heart. It's the little things. It's like, what are his motives? Is it money? Is it greed? Is it just to ruin people's lives, like Frederick?
Yeah, and people are always under the surface, like pulling little strings and making things happen in ways that really affect people's lives. I mean, again, that's just what's such a wonderful thing about Austen's genius, is that she just finds such a way to take characters that you feel like you've met before in some aspect of your life, or you could meet, and they still seem as if they would exist today in some capacity, just like you were talking about with the chick flick comparison. They just feel so modern, John and Isabella, because the frenemy, the guy that just talks about his sports car, it's just so relatable.
I know. It's just timeless.
She's always pointing out to us that sometimes the scariest villains are the people who do realistic things, who do things just that they're not murdering someone, but they're maybe murdering someone's reputation. And I love that about her. I love Austen. She's such a genius.
I know, absolutely. It's sometimes also her more secondary characters, like the villains, or like people like Charlotte Lucas, that you, like you said, you actually do find in real life. And I just think that's like so interesting. She just had such like a way with like the human race that she just like knows people so well. It's pretty fascinating. She would have done Austen and like a psychology degree or something. She would have been great.
I just kind of picture her at parties, just sitting back and watching everything that was going on and watching everybody and seeing how all the dynamics play out. Just a great studier of people for sure.
I know. So funny. Okay, great. So that's everything wrapped up then. So do you want to let people know where they can find you? And I'll tag a couple of bits in.
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, which is youtube.com/princess lessons. I have a lot of vlogs, some bookish vlogs, some Disney vlogs, a lot of things at Disney parks, and a lot of things with Disney characters. So if you enjoy Disney characters, you can see those there. And then I have a Bookstagram account on Instagram, which is paper.hearts.library.
No, I love that. And I always love all the content that you shared. And if, like me, you sit around just dreaming that you'd be back at Disney, then I definitely recommend following Anne's YouTube channel, because yeah, you can sit there and dream and actually watch it in person and be like, oh, that'd be so nice if I was there right now. So yeah, I definitely recommend you subscribing there. But yeah, that's everything from us today. You can find me over on Instagram at What the Austen, and I share a lot of Jane Austen content. Also, there's a lot of updates and what's coming out on the podcast. So if you just can't wait for the next episode, then yeah, find me over there and you'll be able to see a couple of clips before the next one comes out. But that's everything from us. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.